So we're going to talk about how you're going to use audio to increase your reach and profitability. And this is something that in the age of video may not necessarily be all that obvious. And there are always going to be some people that are part of the audience that you're trying to build. They really do want to engage with audio, and not everyone wants to sit and watch videos in real time. And we'll talk about that here in this session. But being able to communicate by audio is going to give you a wider reach. It's going to help you to reach a different segment of your audience, and it's going to help you to get your message across more effectively. And we'll talk about that here in this session. So why should audio be a part of your marketing arsenal? Whether you're marketing the audio in and of itself or you're using audio or video in order to market your business, you want to give some consideration to also making sure that you're using audio effectively. And not everybody has to develop an audio presence. It's a good one, though, to share your thoughts and your vision overall. You are going to be able to get things across in a different way, and people just process audio differently than they do video. And when a person consumes your audio, they can actually physically take you more places than they can with your video. If you're thinking about this, a person can take you to the gym if they can listen to you. They can take you in their car. They can take you to lots of different places that they may not be able to do so if they're just going to do video. Just considering if you are a workout person, you'll know that there are times when you just can't concentrate on a television screen or an iPad screen or whatever it is that you're looking at, and being able to listen is more effective sometimes to your being able to work out. And if you're not on a machine, or if you're not at the gym and you're just walking outside, or if you're out going for a run, audio is how you get things across. And this is going to be a way for, again, you to be with your customer in a way that you can't do so with video. So anything that your customer can do without having to be in front of a computer screen, you're going to be able to be with them by communicating in audio. And if you don't have it available, that's one aspect that some people are going to be able to some people are not going to be able to engage with you. And so you want to be able to do that. This is going to always help you to develop a deeper connection with your customer. And it always depends on what you're going to be sharing in the audio, but your customer is going to be able to hear you. And they're going to be able to hear your intonation. They're going to be able to hear you at a level, again, at which they cannot see in text. So whatever you can do with text, you can be more effective with audio, and you can do it with emotion. Reading your feelings about something is going to be much different than them hearing you express the same thought. And again, you're going to be able to bring your personality into this in a lot different way than you're going to be able to do so with text. Let's talk about deepening your USP with audio. And this is another important aspect of this. And audio is going to allow you to deepen the communication. And you're going to be able to talk to people at some level until they really get what you're saying. Sometimes you're going to be able to explain things in a way that someone reading the text, they're just not going to be able to get it until they hear it from you. Again, being able to communicate by audio is going to help you to do that. The listener is going to be focusing on your voice. They're going to be hearing your intonation. They're going to be hearing the things that you emphasize in the way that you say it. And they're going to be able to hear what's really important to you in a way, again, that they can't do with text. And unless you're doing a radio ad, you're typically going to be talking to people in a discussion tone. And typically, unless you're doing a radio ad of some kind, you're going to be having a discussion with people. And people are just going to respond differently if you're discussing with them as opposed to kind of talking at them. And you're going to be able to engage their mind. And this is going to be a way in which you're going to be able to discuss things at a level at which talking at them is just not going to get things across. Again, you're going to be able to advertise, but at the same time, you're going to be having a discussion. And so your customer is going to come to know and understand why you do the things that you do. And they're going to be able to do that in a way with audio that you can't do with any other real medium. Let's talk about the categories of audio marketing for a second, and this is going to, again, kind of be an important aspect of this when you think about this. And podcasting is probably the most well-known aspect of audio marketing. And even though it happens with iTunes, there are other ways to connect, with your customer when you're using audio. You can also do online radio. And one of the best well-known platforms to be able to do that is Blog Talk Radio if you're doing spoken word. Obviously, if you're using music, there are lots of other platforms that you can use to do live audio. And it's just another category of being able to speak to someone without using text or without using video. Some people obviously like to use YouTube, and you can also deliver your audio using YouTube. And pretty much you're just going to need to be able to do a little video editing. And if you can do some video editing, you can then create a video that is all audio. Or you can just create the audio and you can use an application like Headliner app, which turns your audio into a video and places that video on YouTube. Regardless of how you do it, YouTube is a place where some people will go and listen for audio content, and they'll be able to engage with you in that way. So that's another way of being able to engage with audio and reach an audience that you would not reach otherwise. Obviously, when you're doing that, and when you're using iTunes and podcasting or Blog Talk Radio, you're giving the audio away. We're going to get into that here in a minute. But again, it is a way to find an audience. It is a way to engage an audience. And again, if you're on YouTube, you're going to be able to reach an audience that you may not be able to reach if you're just using iTunes or if you're just using Blog Talk Radio or any of those mediums. And you can use your audio in the very same way if you're going to use YouTube as a social media platform. Then it becomes just like using it on LinkedIn. You can also do Twitter, and you can also do Facebook. I mean, those are ways that you can use live audio to reach a social media audience. In fact, I mean, you can repurpose your audio in those same mediums. So this is another way of being able to get your message across using audio, just audio, and to reach that specific audience. Again, I mean, you can use StreamYard in order to do this. And obviously, StreamYard relies on you doing video. But again, you do not have to appear on camera in order to stream live to these elements and to do it with audio. You can use another platform called Restream. Again, it's the same concept. You're going to be streaming live to places like YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, but you're not going to have to appear on camera. That's going to be your choice. So there are ways for you to get audio into the ears of people. You can get to them from their social media platform if you use some of these other elements. And of course, another way, once you have the recording, you can actually use Audacity in order to edit out the audio. And that's going to be one way for you to do the editing. You don't have to use a video editing program if you don't want to. Audacity is perfectly fine to edit the audio. And in fact, it's a better use of your resources to edit using Audacity if you're just focusing on audio. And again, social media platforms are very popular ways of being able to deliver the audio. So people are hanging out on social media. They're already there. And if your audience is already there or you have a group of some kind, this is a good way of reaching new audiences. Now, obviously, you're trying to push these people into your marketing presence. You're trying to get them to join your email marketing list. All of those things are in place, and you're going to be doing those things. However, you're talking about reaching new people. Social media is still the way for people to say, hey, you know what, I just heard something awesome, I'm going to share it with my friends. And that's really the more viral aspect of being able to be on social media and to reach new people. Twitter Spaces has channels, so you can take advantage of that viral effect using Twitter Spaces. There are places like Clubhouse. Again, it is a social platform. It kind of has a life of its own when it first started. It's kind of leveled out now, but it still is a place where if you just want to use audio, you're going to be able to talk to your audience specifically on Clubhouse if you don't want to be on camera. And now these tools are now giving you the ability to create a replay. And this is going to be very good because, again, you can always get that replay, download it, and then make it available to your customers in other mediums. So audio marketing is in play. It is a good way of reaching new audiences, and there are ways to be able to do it without having to create and use expensive tools or anything like that. So there are various categories of audio marketing. You can use all of them. You can use some of them. But audio is a viable way of being able to talk to a customer in a way that you cannot do in other areas. I do want to talk a little bit about Audible ACX, and that is the Amazon arm where you can create audiobooks. And basically, if you already have a book published or you have a book self-published, you can take that self-published book. You can then turn that self-published book into an audio format, and you can then put that audio format on Amazon, and you can reach people with your audio. So there is a need for us to kind of discuss that briefly because, again, it is audio. And so you can increase your visibility by getting that audio on Amazon. And in fact, you can actually use spoken word audio even if it's not necessarily narration. So if you don't want to have someone narrate a book, if you have a live presentation and you can have that live presentation turned into a book and then have that book placed on Kindle, you can then reach that audience with that live spoken word audio because it will then match up on Audible ACX. So again, the first part of the process, though, is that you do need to have that live spoken word audio or whatever audio that you've created. It's got to have to be translated into text. So that's the first step of all of this. Once you do that, then you've got to have it formatted into a book form. And so when you first get a transcript of, if you're doing spoken word audio or even if you've done a podcast, it's not necessarily going to read like a book. And so you're going to need to go that next step, and you're going to have that audio that you had transcribed, you're going to have that made into a book. It's going to have to be made readable. And you can generally have that part outsourced, although depending on your budget, you may even want to have it done yourself. And there's a reason for that. You don't want to necessarily turn over something that's going to be on Amazon to someone else. And the reason that Amazon depends on customer reviews. Any content you have there is going to thrive on what the customer actually says. And so what you don't want to have is, don't want to have readers coming to something that you've created and you've placed on Amazon saying things like, well, it really feels like this was a transcript. I thought this was going to be a book. It didn't read right. And they're going to give you, a rating that maybe you didn't necessarily intend because you were trying to really get your audio there. So if you're going to go to this step and you are going to have your audio transcribed, you're going to have it turned into a book, you do want to make sure that that book reads exactly like what you want it to say, and it does need to read like something that you want someone to buy and have a good experience with. And so that transcript is not going to give your user or your reader a good experience. And that's all really Amazon cares about. So they're not necessarily going to care that, you were just trying to get your audio there and you didn't really care about the written document so much. They want their customers to have a good user experience. And that's what you want to have too. And so if you're going to be using live content that you want to give away, and you don't necessarily need to have someone to buy that content, what you can do in order to work around this is you can create a podcast. And that's kind of important when it comes to Audible and ACX because Audible and ACX, as of this session, does have a podcast category. And there's no magic to it. You just got to be listed with Amazon Music. And that's just a sign-up process. And once you have signed your podcast up with Amazon Music, your podcast is going to be available in Audible ACX. And sometimes you don't even have to go through that process. Depending on what kind of medium you're using, they will automatically place your content inside of Audible ACX and Amazon Music for you. But if they don't do that, you can actually go through the process yourself and making sure that your podcast gets there. Now, that's going to be important to this because you want that content to be findable inside of Amazon. And so they're going to be able to find your podcast through Audible. And if you have a good description, meaning that you have good keywords, if you're using good terms and tags, people are going to be able to find your podcast if they are looking for that specific subject. And that is really what you want. You want to be as findable on Audible for your content as you would if you were going to write a book. Now, obviously, your book's going to be in a different category, but getting that content into Audible is going to be the way that you are going to be able to be findable. And specifically, if what you're trying to do is direct people to your web presence or you're trying to direct people to your products and services, you're going to be able to move faster in getting that content to Audible by going through this method. And so you are really using this audio in order to market. And so because of that, going through the process of writing lots of books, unless you're really looking to be in that business or you're looking to be an author, it may be more profitable long term, and it may be faster for you to focus on your business and then have your content placed on Audible ACX. And then here's the other thing about that. People that are listening to your audio on Audible, they may be more open to listening to longer sessions. I mean, in general, people listen to podcasts and they like short podcasts. They like podcasts that are going to be about 10 or 15 minutes. They can kind of get the information and get in and out. That may not be your audience. And in some cases, if you have live spoken word audio and if it's going to be a little longer, I mean, in some cases, that may find an audience on audible.com because people who are there, they're used to listening to longer sessions because they're there for their books. And so, you know, you're going to be doing a live workshop. If that's the case, you then have that audio placed on your podcast host and you channel it to Audible. And you could have the same people listening to that content that will be longer than general podcast content. Now, again, if your audio is a paid product and you're looking to monetize that product, there's not going to be a workaround to having it in a readable form on Audible. So if you're going to go through the book writing process, you do need to have a process that will be cost effective for you and time effective for you, that you can get that content up on Audible and get it into a book form, and then you can have that audio to match the book in Audible ACX. And so again, all of that's going to be based on your process. All that's going to be based on how much you want to spend, how much time you want to spend, how much you want to spend in terms of resources. But it's doable to have a book placed on Kindle and then have a matching audio on Audible ACX. But again, that's got to be an ROI. So if you don't feel as if you're going to get an ROI from having spent, let's say, resources or having time spent of creating a Kindle book, then you're going to want to consider just using the podcast method, which places you on Audible ACX. Let's talk about monetization and exponential marketing when it comes to audio. And audio can be monetized. And whenever you're doing audio of any kind, you obviously want to be mentioning your direct URLs for your listeners to go and to find the products that you are selling and any affiliate products that you are marketing. And this is all that, it doesn't matter which audio you're doing, whether you're doing live audio or podcast audio, you should be mentioning direct URLs for people to go to. You've got to make them memorable. You've got to make it so that people know where they can go and find them. Now, again, the other part to audio that is very important is that the popularity of podcasting has made audio a venue for sponsorship. And this is something obviously you can do with video, but again, it is a popular way of being able to take content that you're creating that you're maybe not using in order to sell directly, but that you're really looking to engage and entertain. You can develop a sponsorship venue for an audience. So if you can gather an audience that likes to listen to what it is that you are talking about in your audio, you can have that audio sponsored. Now, the key to that is that you're going to have to know who your demographics are. So if you know who you're reaching and you know who is listening to your audio, then any audio can be monetized if you're consistent and if you have enough of it. And so this is going to help you to kind of determine which platform you want to use. So if you're very serious about developing audio content and it isn't necessarily audio that you're going to sell, it's audio where you're going to be developing an audience, choose a platform that will help you to be able to gain sponsorship. So this is something that you want to think about in terms of how you want to consider monetizing your audio. Now, you can sell your audio content by making it downloadable, and you can develop a sales platform for it. Obviously, if you have something on WordPress or if you use a course platform, there are applications like SoundWise that make this easy for a customer to get the audio and get it onto their mobile device. However you do it, any audio can be monetized if you just want to sell it directly, if you want to sell it by sponsorship, or if you want to sell it by selling products within the audio that you are actually creating. Whenever you're creating content that's going to be valued to your customers and or your prospects, it can make a great bonus for your offerings. So if you can create good content on a regular basis you're going to be able to gather that content. And if you made it free, even if you've made it free, I mean, you can take that content and you can enhance it in order to give to your customer, in order to give them a bonus, because not everyone's going to hear your free content. And sometimes the customer will be appreciative of being able to listen to your audio. Sometimes you can use it as an upsell to projects where you offer a basic level. So you're giving your customer some kind of information. You can upgrade that project, or you can give that customer another level of that product by offering them an audio recording that you did. And again, this is a very easy thing to do, and it's a very valuable thing to do, depending on how much expertise you're sharing in that actual audio. And so when you think about which form your audio that you want to place it in, you should be asking yourself a few questions. First, what can I use to influence customers to come back more often? So whenever I create the audio, is this a way for me to get customers to come back to my website more often? Whether it's a podcast or whether it is a training, however you're doing it, what can you do within that audio to get customers to come back more often? What can you do to get customers to spend more? And so maybe that's doing a description of what it is that you were talking about or what it is that you were selling. Again, that works well within a podcast medium. It can work well within an online radio platform. However you choose to communicate, you're going to want to engage your existing customers and drive more of them to your products. So anytime that you are talking, be also thinking about your existing product line and what it is you want to communicate and how it is you're going to position what it is you're doing on audio. But it's a great way of being able to, again, move people through your marketing funnel if you're going to be talking to your customers, or even if you're going to be talking to your prospects before they actually become customers. You can also use audio in your list building efforts. Customers that come to you through your audio channels, they're going to know you a little better, and they're going to have a better affinity towards you. This is probably true of video also, but it's especially true of audio because, again, your customers got to engage their mind. They got to engage their imagination to listen to you while you're speaking. And it's for that reason that you're going to want to consider not placing the same individuals that come to you by audio inside of the same email campaigns that come from other sources. You want to treat them differently, at least until you discover what it is that they're willing to buy, because again, they're going to have a different level of respect and affinity for you than someone who just came to you as a result of getting something free. And you can choose a different kind of automated series. If you're putting this person into an email series, you may want to divide out your email series so that the people that are coming to you by audio, that they get maybe 2 or 3 days of a different level of email, that you treat them differently. And there are ways, obviously, to use automation to move those people back into your main campaign. But the point is that you really do need to treat them differently, and you want to engage them differently because they're going to have a different relationship with you. Obviously, however you're doing email, you do need to have tracking in place in order to do this. So if you're using an email automation of any kind, make sure you have your tracking in place if you're going to go to this step of dividing out your list so that the people that are coming to you by audio are going to be treated differently than the rest of the list that are coming to you. Audio content should always be used as list building. Anytime you're doing an episode or a podcast, you've always got to make sure that you promise at least one thing that people can only get by opting in. You've got to make it visual, and you've got to make it tangible. And so whenever you're talking to people, and this is not just in podcasting, this is anything that you're doing in audio. Even if you're doing an ebook, you've got to make the concept tangible, and you've got to give it to them, and you've got to give people some way of being able to see something in their mind they're going to get by engaging with you further. You can give them a transcript. A transcript is tangible. They've heard the audio, and you can promise them that what they've just heard, you're going to give them a transcript. You're going to give them a summary. You're going to give them some kind of checklist or cheat sheet. You can promise them a video version. Again, you're trying to get them to envision in their mind something that they're going to get that's directly related to what they just heard. And you want to be able to do that. You can give them the cutting room discussion. So maybe there's some behind the scenes that you did with the person that you created an interview with. And again, the person just heard the audio. You want to give them the rest of that discussion. Again, you want to promise them that. And so you promise people these things because you want to give them an incentive that, again, they can visualize so that they will then want to join your list. Again, the more that you can make it visual and get them to see what they're going to get, they may be more willing to then come and then opt in order to get it. The setup conversation. So again, all of these are the same things. You're giving people a visual that you want people to see something that they're going to get that's directly related to what they've just heard, so that they will then want to come and sign up and opt in. Anything that's niche related, obviously, it's a little less related to what you've just discussed in your audio. But again, if you can tie it to the discussion that you've just had on audio, people are going to be willing to opt in if you promise them to that. So again, use the audio content that you have in order to develop your list, but then just make it visual from that discussion. If you want to give people the rights to the conversation, you can give people the rights to use it in their own publications or in their own information products. Once again, you're giving people something tangible, and you're giving them a reason to want to opt in. So again, all these are things that you can promise people, and the only reason you're promising these things is so that you can get them to join your email marketing list, so that you can then start to contact them, and you can then begin to work with them and engage with them. In some cases, you are going to be able to advertise in audio. That's going to be another way for you to be able to engage your customer. You're going to be using direct response in that case. One thing you can always do is to look to non-traditional sources of advertisement, and this is becoming more popular now, that you can find a podcast where you know your audience is going to be. And if you want to be able to advertise on a specific podcast and you know the audience, you're going to be on that podcast talking up whatever it is that you want people to hear about. The case of being on a podcast, you're not going to be promoting your own content in that case. You're going to be giving people a call to action to go and get something that you already have. And so you're using audio, you are advertising on audio, and again, you're going to be creating a visual. You're going to create a call to action for people to see something that you're going to be able to get, but you're using these non-traditional methods and non-traditional ways of engaging people using only audio, finding a podcast. The larger the podcast, the more formal arrangements you're going to want to be, but in general, you can talk to someone who has a podcast and talk to them about what it is you want to do, why it is you want to appear. Maybe in some cases, a podcast host may want to interview you, or a podcast host may just want to make a formal arrangement for you to pay them. However you want to do it, if you know that that podcast host has your demographic, that's going to be a great way for you to be able to reach your audience using audio. You should definitely be using interview-based podcasting, and this is going to help you to find more partners. And again, this is an important aspect of your marketing, especially as you start to grow your network of people that you can partner with, that will sell your products, that will promote you. If you can do an interview-based podcast, you already have a built-in advantage in finding new partners. So if you have been striking out in terms of finding a new partner, finding people who are willing to promote, or finding people who are willing to create products with you, a great way of being able to do this is develop an interview-based podcast, contacting people in order to interview them. Now, potential partners are going to be willing to talk to you the more that you got a way to promote them. And that's just going to be a fact. And if you have a podcast, you can do that. And you're not doing these interviews on video. And so that means that you're going to be finding more people that are going to be able to sit and talk to you. Believe it or not, some people are just not going to do interviews because they're too busy, or if they've got to be on video and they've got to arrange things, they've got to prepare a background, you will find that people will be willing to talk to you if they can talk to you by audio. And so just the fact that you've eliminated the camera, you're going to be able to get more people than if you were only doing a specific kind of podcast, specifically video. And so tell people this up front. You know, when you're trying to find someone that you want to interview, let them know this is going to be audio only, that they can do it by phone, that you're just going to call them, you're going to do the recording, and you're going to take care of everything. You want to make this easy, and audio actually does make it easier for you to get people that are going to be higher profile and people who have great content, but they're just busy. If they don't have to be on video, you're going to be able to have the discussion with them, and The real benefit to this is that they're going to be people that you are going to have discussion with about further business. But you want to do the interview first, obviously, and you want to reach out to them in order to do audio interviews. Let's talk about educational marketing also. If you create educational content, you want to make sure that you create a portion of your course materials with the understanding that people are just going to listen to them. And this takes a bit of skill in order to do, but you don't want to assume that people have to sit down and watch a video. And even if you're doing presentation style content, you especially want to make sure that people can sit and listen to what it is that you are saying. Now, obviously, you're not going to always be able to do this. Some things are just going to require on-screen demonstrations when you're doing educational marketing. But if you have primarily presentation style content and the individual doesn't have to watch the screen, you want to create that content and create your visuals with your words so that people will be able to listen to you and get the full impact of what it is that you are teaching. Now, the key in educational marketing is always going to be post-purchase consumption. And so when you can get people to come and consume what it is that you're creating, this is always going to be better than if they get your product and they're not going to consume it. And so what you're trying to do when you're doing educational marketing of any kind is you're trying to get people to consistently consume what it is that you are creating. Because the more they consume it, the more they're able to take your recommendations. They will then be able to find the value in what you're doing, and the more likely it's going to be that they're going to come back to purchase more of what it is that you are doing. Let's talk about the fast start into audio content creation. And this is going to be probably something that you want to kind of consider as you start to venture into doing more audio. And it's not going to be a perfect solution, but one of the ways that you can get started creating podcasts quickly is to use something like Anchor.fm. And it's a fast start because the medium is going to be free. There's no cost presently to use Anchor.fm. Now, it's connected to Spotify, and they own Anchor. And it also connects to all the other podcast aggregators. So that's going to be important. And the fact is it automatically strips the audio from any video. So if you upload a video to their platform, it'll strip out the audio. So let's say that you did a webinar of some kind and you had audio. You can actually upload that video straight to Anchor, and it'll strip out that audio and turn it into an audio podcast. Now, obviously, there are going to be limitations. I mean, you don't own the platform. So whatever Anchor says, you're going to have to kind of abide by what it is that they're going to do. But you can always start on Anchor just to get used to creating audio content until you decide to move to something that's going to be more robust. You might ask them, where's this audience going to come from if you're going to start a podcast? The easiest way to make those connections is going to be to start conducting interviews, because basically what you're trying to do is leverage the audience of the people that you're interviewing. And so as a result of that, make sure you don't look for generic guests. Look for the guests that already have your customer base gathered. So you want to find people that are talking about the things that you know your customers are interested in, that are not necessarily competing with you, but definitely people who are willing to kind of come on and talk to you. And they're going to be talking about things that you know that your customers are going to be wanting to hear. And you also want to look for guests that have an audience if you can find one. And so if you're going to go and get guests, again, we're talking about how you're going to develop an audience. Well, you want your guests to bring their audience. And this is the benefit of doing a podcast and finding guests that already have people that are listening to them. Because what you're going to be doing in the course of this podcast is, first of all, you're going to keyword optimize whatever it is you're doing so that people who are searching for that person will end up finding your interview. But definitely what you're going to be doing is asking kindly, after you complete the interview, you're going to want to have your guest share the episode. It is a very simple process. It's not always going to end up where you're going to have lots of people coming as a result of that person. But you want to do the interview such that that person will feel good about sharing your podcast, about sharing your interview. And this is a great way of being able to use audio effectively in order to build an audience, the kind of audience that will help you to build your list. Okay, are there any questions? Any questions?
Subscribe our channel, share this video your friends. Thanks for watching.